Hello and welcome to the WBAP 820 570 KLIF weather podcast for Monday, April 25th. After some heavy rains over the weekend, we're finally drying out across North Texas, and we're going to enjoy a couple of days of mild, dry weather with fairly light northeast winds. So let's get right to it. Here's the national radar view with showers and thunderstorms stretching from around Chicago and Detroit, clear on down through the Ozarks into the Texas Hill Country. We could call this a full latitude trough of low pressure. It's actually a double-barreled storm system, but it's covering a lot of territory, and here's why. The main storm system is north of the Great Lakes. That's the upper level low there, north of the Great Lakes. And then there's a secondary upper level low moving from the Rockies into Kansas and the Great Plains. So that's why it's covering so much territory. And really, we have rain all the way from the Canadian border down nearly to the Texas-Mexico border, a full latitude weather event. Of course, it did produce some severe weather over the last several days. Now, here is the severe weather as we saw it begin to develop Friday night into Saturday. We had some tornado reports in northwest Kansas and wind and hail reports from South Dakota all the way down into the Panhandle. Moving ahead, these were some storm reports from Saturday night into Sunday, and we had one big tornado report in the Des Moines, Iowa area. But other than that, pretty much just wind and hail. We had a couple isolated tornadoes across the Dakotas and one clear on up into Minnesota. Now, here in north and central Texas, our big outbreak of storms was on the 12th. It ended up with 17 confirmed tornadoes in Texas in a 24-hour period. They're not all depicted here, but most of them. And there was one fatality between the Sherman-Denison area and Texoma in northeast Texas. It was just a brief tornado. It was on the ground for a minute or less, but it did some damage in the Sherman Springs area. The worst tornado was down in Salado near Stagecoach Inn, had an EF3 with 165-mile-an-hour winds. It tore up a bunch of homes near Salado, and not far from Jarrell, which was nearly wiped out by an EF4 to EF5 tornado 25 years ago. So here's what happened to one of our longtime storm spotters at Ennis that night. Could have been a downburst wind or maybe a brief funnel, but it tore the roof off of Dairy Queen on I-45 plus several other buildings. And as our storm spotter was driving away, a gust of wind picked up his heavy-duty Chevy pickup and rolled it 3 times into a ditch. Thankfully, our storm spotter and his wife suffered only minor cuts and bruises, but it's a good object lesson. If you're driving toward what looks to be a strong thunderstorm, it's best to pull off the road, get out of your truck or car, go into a sound building, and stay away from windows until the storm passes by. Yes, there have been cases where people trying to escape their cars into a building have been struck by debris and suffered serious injury or death, but that's very unusual. The best thing to do is get out of your vehicle, no matter what size it is, and get into a sturdy structure. Okay, here's where we are today. This morning's satellite loop shows one more area of showers and storms in the western hill country that's moving up northeast towards central and north Texas once again. They could fall apart as they move into an atmosphere that's been stabilized by last night's storms, but I wouldn't necessarily bet on it this time of year. Now let's move to the upper air maps where there's much more good news on the way. You can see a nice high-pressure ridge moving in from the west. That's going to mean clearing skies and mild temperatures through midweek. Some beautiful weather to wrap up April with throughout at least the midweek, and probably not too bad as we head on through the end of the week as well. All right, now we'll start running through the surface maps, which will give you an idea. Starting at noon Monday, showers and storms still stretch from the hill country up through East Texas over to Memphis, through Kentucky and Ohio, into the Great Lakes. Now, tomorrow morning, the heaviest rains are going to be in the lower Rio Grande Valley as that Pacific front gets all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico, and that rain will run from the lower Rio Grande across to New Orleans on up through the Blue Ridge Mountains to the east. By Wednesday morning, there's going to be some snow, actually, lake effect snow, from Pittsburgh up through Buffalo, New York, but it's going to be fairly quiet elsewhere except some rain and scattered thunderstorms again in the lower Rio Grande Valley as that cold front finally stalls out and tries to move north as a warm front. Now, by Thursday morning, our winds across Texas will have shifted back to the south with some showers and storms up in Kansas and Missouri, and as a new storm system moves onshore in the Pacific Northwest. On Friday, we see a lot of rain across the northern tier of states and a few thunderstorms through the Ozarks, but will be windy, warm, and increasingly humid across most of Texas during that time. Now, by Saturday, there'll be a few storms in East Texas on up through the Ozarks and significant rain from the Dakotas on into the Corn Belt, but most of that will be rain. And by Sunday, heavier rains in the Appalachian Mountains and a new chance of thunderstorms from Wichita Falls to the Hill Country and eastward, including a new chance of storms here in North Texas. So here's our forecast. Cloudy, windy, and cool. Spotty showers tapering off this afternoon with a high near 70. Winds out of the northeast 15 to 25 and gusty. Then clearing and cool overnight. Lows either side of 50. Tomorrow, Tuesday, mostly sunny, breezy, and mild with a high near 74, lows 52. Winds out of the northeast, fairly light northeast winds tomorrow. Not a bad day for spraying if you have to spray. Wednesday, mostly sunny, breezy, and mild with a high of 79, 62 for the low. Winds out of the southeast 10 to 20. By Thursday, we're partly cloudy, windy, and more humid with a high of 84. And by Friday, partly cloudy, windy, and warmer with a high near 87. Our next chance of rain and thunderstorms on Sunday. Thanks again for joining us for the WBAP 820-570 KLIF Weather Podcast for Monday, April 25th. I'm meteorologist Brad Barton. We'll see you next time.